Today I'm going to talk to you about the Death card from the tarot. The Death card is the final card of the second of the three stages or divisions that you can find in the tarot. The first one goes from the beginning of the major arcana until the Lovers, and the second stage begins with the Chariot, which is the triumphal chariot, because in the first stage what you have is this triumph of this process of initiation, of self-realizing and receiving a vision of reality. And then in the second stage, systematically, all of the parts of you that go through this initiation are stripped away piece by piece with a series of processes of discovery, of introspection, and then of overcoming. So that by the time you're done this process with this card, you've stripped away all of your previous concept of reality, making space for this supreme experience, which is what comes in the third stage. Now, the Death card is a very interesting card because in many older decks, you won't see an actual title on the card. You'll see the number that indicates where it belongs, but it has no word that says death as the Death card. Indeed, in the deck that I'm using, there's a number there, but there's no title. And the Death card is called death, but this is a complicated term. It's one that you have to understand the meaning of what death symbolizes. And just like in the Hanged Man, you have the process of overcoming your mind. In the Death card, you have the process of overcoming the spirit, to overcome this fundamental question of the ego, the question of death. You've probably heard some tarot reader somewhere or some book on tarot somewhere say that death isn't really a bad card, that what death means is change, really. It's just all about change. And this sounds like a fairly trite kind of phrase, but in fact, it does hide something deeper to it, which is that really all life is change. And death is also change. Death is this process of transformation. So this reveals that there's actually a tie, not a separation, but a uniting of this process of life and death. That life and death are part of this one spectrum. They're not two separate states. You can see in the card that there's the angel of death, and the angel has its sickle there, and it's mowing down, leveling all things. And you can see that there's a number of body parts there. In this deck, it's mostly hands. Sometimes you see hands and feet and bones and other parts that have been chopped down by the sickle of death. And there's also a pair of heads there that belong to a king and a queen. And the king and the queen have shown up before, right? They're the emperor and the empress, and they're the two lovers. So on one level, this symbolizes that death is the great leveler, that this fundamental question, this fundamental issue, is something that is universal to the human experience. What it also reveals is that it's something that is equal to all levels of experience, right? That in the context, the medieval context of the tarot, it shows that not even the royalty can escape the touch of death. But also, these are the king and queen in the sense of the emperor and the empress of the tarot, that they represent that state of empowerment that one receives from initiation, which are a step that is a temporary step towards this ongoing process, but that the initiate has filled themselves with this sense of inner strength, of inner balance, and along comes the death card and says, in the end, you have to take that away too. You have to take away the whole process of your initiatory experience before you can move into the stage of actual enlightenment. So speaking of enlightenment, I wanted to talk for a moment about the Buddha. The literal meaning of the word Buddha is the awakened one, but it can also mean someone who has overcome death. That's the definition of what a Buddha is. Except that we all know that the Buddha still dies, right? The original Buddha died, and all other Buddhas ever have also died. So, in what sense does a Buddha overcome death? The awakened person doesn't become immortal, neither in the sense that their physical body doesn't die, nor in this sense that some people have tried to create a mythology around of ascended masters and all these other things. The Buddha is a human being, and the human being lives and the human being dies. So overcoming death is about overcoming the element within yourself that is death. If you die before you die, which is a phrase that is used in mysticism, specifically it comes from the Sufis, then what you are doing is you're dying to the non-essential. All that is non-essential about you, all that is not immortal, all that is not eternal about you, will die. And if you allow it to die consciously, then you can achieve the real, which is this universal force that is beyond all conception of what you are physically and what you are in your mind and what you are as a personality. It feels very real to you because it's what you've defined as yourself. You attach to this idea that this is you, and you know that this you is actually something that is very vulnerable, that it changes and therefore dies. So this is the cause of suffering. The only way to overcome death is to die, is to allow that death to occur. So the loss of all that's non-essential is the realizing of the eternal. If you give up what you had, if you give up what you think you are and what you think you exist as, then you can discover what is actually there. It's not something new exactly. It's a change in the sense of that shredding off, the shearing of the scythe that reveals what's underneath, which is what you forgot. You can look at existence as a crossroad, and this is a symbol that exists in all cultures, the cross, the meeting of the horizontal and the vertical. And this can refer to a lot of things, space and time, the inner and the outer, but it can also be a cross of life and death, where the horizontal axis goes from a kind of death to a kind of life, and the vertical from a kind of death to a kind of life. But they're two different lives and two different deaths. The death and life on the horizontal level is the death and life of the individual, where the individual feels that he has this state that he really is, that's constantly dying and constantly being reborn, even though you don't realize it. At every instant, you're changing and transforming. And then there's this life and death, which is this spiritual state. And the question is, you can be alive in a physical body and as an ego, but not actually be living. To actually live, you have to be willing to accept the death of this idea that you are this eternal and constant thing that you've created for yourself. When you do that, you find the middle point, that perfect balance between death and between life.